The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision.
Welcome to How to Money with Cole and Baileigh. I'm Cole.
And I'm Baileigh.
We're financial advisors at Full Swing Financial, where we coach people every day on their money.
Each episode, we cut through the noise and focus on the financial decisions that actually matter.
Our goal is simple, to help you feel more confident and more in control of your money.
Let's get into today's episode. Cheers.
Shout out Stella's.
Shout out Stella's. The best coffee. Even though Cole got a little oat milk, he's trying it, not loving it.
It's 10:24. We are ready to go.
All right, shout out Stella's, the best sponsor, podcast sponsor, best coffee in the Midwest. Love her. She also, shout out because she sponsored our 5K, Full Swing Forward 5K. We had this last Saturday. Great turnout.
Second year we've had.
And it's getting better every time. Little tweaks here and there. A couple people got lost on the course. Our woman's first was like, "Don't put me in first. I definitely didn't beat anyone. I got lost out there." But
little shortcut.
Little shortcut. I think she got tired. No, I'm just kidding.
Shout out to the team. I was gone. I had a baseball tournament that got rescheduled. We ended up in Des Moines. So that's where I was at. But the team held it down. Yes. My brother family helped out
Cody,
a little bit.
You owe him a few bucks for helping out.
But super excited. You know, we raised money for the Fort Dodge Golf Academy and Children's Cancer Connection for the second year in a row.
Yeah. It was really cool just to put this in perspective. We had a family that utilizes Children's Cancer Connection, and they spoke briefly about their experience of what they do, and obviously you don't know until it affects you. So I think it's always good to know and appreciate, one, you can get out there and run, and two, make a difference in someone's life who, you know, spending Christmas in the hospitals, all that. It just puts it in perspective when your kids are healthy and life's rolling.
I was real proud of our team, our local paper.
Yeah.
You know, the front page of the sports section, big picture of just all the kids, because we do a 1K for the kids, and then a 5K either run or walk for adults, and it was just a whole picture full of kids just running, and it was really, really, really cool to see just kind of some families come together. We lucked out on the weather 2 years in a row, right? So we're kind of gambling for doing it in April in Iowa,
and we're always gambling with like baseball, soccer. We're always trying to find a time that works.
It's always a scheduling conflict.
Yeah, but also shout out Toby Ledley, Alexa's son. These kids are competitive, shockingly.
He wanted to win so bad.
And he did. He's like, I threw up. I was running so hard.
Threw up mid-race.
He got fourth last year and first this year. So, no, really cool event.
Thanks for everyone that attended, participated, helped, sponsor, many sponsors.
Stella's,
Can't thank you all.
So many good sponsors. So looking forward to doing it again next year. So, all right, let's get into it. 10 things nobody tells you about retirement. Most people think retirement's a finish line, like you get $1 million, get $2 million, and you're there. But we had this conversation with someone who's retiring in 3 days yesterday. There's so much to it emotionally, decisions. It's not just a number. It's definitely something you got to prepare for.
Yeah, and there's the 2 years ago at our client event, we talked about this, right? Of having, everyone sees that, wants to have a finish line or a targeted dollar. We very rarely, that's one, I would say like a misconception. Very rarely do we focus on like a targeted dollar amount for someone to get. We focus so much on the process of getting you there versus decisions. Yeah. And the little decisions. And then, we get down to like the more basic monthly budgets and how much you actually really need for income. Mm-hmm. But, I think a lot of people forget about the emotional side of retirement, of finding purpose and, hey, what am I going to do outside of, my work now? Yeah.
So number one, longevity. You're probably underestimating it, which we talk about this. We are so medically
Everyone
advanced.
Underestimates us.
Yes. They always say, well, my dad died at, or my mom passed away at, but I'm like, hey, that was like 30 years ago. Like medically, we are advanced humans. So a 65-year-old couple today has about a 50% chance that one spouse lives past 90, and about 1 in 3 will live past 95. Especially women's longevity obviously is longer than men, but when you're planning, that makes a difference, because you're saying, hey, if I retire at 60 and I'm living till 90, that's 30 years of income. I just think it's something people don't look, they just assume they're going to live till about 85.
That's one thing that I think is super powerful when we're working with clients and we illustrate this out with our software, because most people will just think, oh, I'm spending $5,000 today. That's what I need for retirement income. When I'm 90, I'll still be spending $5,000. But a lot of times people don't think about inflation. What was that? What did what it looked like 30 years ago? What did grocery bill cost you? Right?
Yeah, we were talking
now
about
think of 30 years moving forward. So you're 60. What's that look like when you're 90? You still got to eat, still got to do stuff. You still have a utility bill.
Yep.
All those things. And when you look at 2 or 3% compounded inflation over a 30-year or maybe 35 or 40-year,
Budget Baileigh will tell you, because even 3 years ago, the groceries were a lot.
Yes.
I'm doing the grocery bill. I'm like, dang, I can look back at my old budget and be like, it's doubled. It has doubled.
And we want people to be aware of why this is something to think about is, especially those honeymoon retirement years or those first couple, like the go-go. Yeah, you're excited. You maybe overspend at the beginning. And that's something that if you have longevity, you need to be, and you already have maybe somewhat of a tight plan, right? If you have a lot of buffer, a lot of room to, maybe make some mistakes, you're probably going to be fine.
The first couple years.
Yeah. But you do need to be aware of, hey, that from age 60 to call it 70, 75, generally people are more active. They're going to kids' ball games. They're maybe traveling to families that live out of state. You might be spending more years, and that sometimes can really be a detriment to your long-term retirement picture, especially if someone that does end up having some longevity or 95 to 100, 100 years old.
And even in the latter, there's some people that just, when they go to retire, they can't spend any money at all because they're like, I don't want to touch any of it. They're fearful of it. They're like, I'll just live off Social Security. I don't want to touch any of it. I'm like, okay, breathe, because you can take a distribution out monthly. You're going to be okay.
What would you say percentage-wise is about, of our retirees, about half and half of that?
Yeah, I was going to say the people.
It's probably 50-50.
I think it, and you'll agree, I think.
That's been too much versus ones that don't spend. You were like, hey,
people who
we need to nudge them.
Save, have too much. They have a harder time turning it on and spending it. The people who maybe are a little tighter, they want to spend it right away. Like it is, I don't know what it is. It's so true. The extreme savers have a much harder time spending once it comes to that point. Because that's all that's your behavior.
I will say this is one reason why I always ask about, one, tax returns. I want to see a tax return.
You're good about
and
that.
Two, I can do a quick analysis, like how much money do you have in the bank?
As Cole would call it, napkin math.
Yeah. How much money you have in the bank, and then I'll take your taxes, and I'm like, okay, I know your net income from your tax return, so I know what you're taking home because it shows me everything there. You're not saving. You do not have that much cash in the bank, and maybe it is all going to retirement accounts. But a lot of times, I got to rough into a budget of what they're spending on a monthly basis. Just like that, I'll ask the simple question: do you have overflow that goes into your savings every month? And if there's someone that doesn't, hey, they're probably spending that dollar. They're spending their net income pretty close, right? So that's where I always say is like, very hard. It's very hard to go from this net income to a 40% reduction or 30% reduction when you go to retire. When people get kind of used to something, it's pretty hard. So we try to use that number, or we advise people to use that number. Now, obviously, sometimes people are like, hey, debt fell off.
Yep.
I no longer have a mortgage, right? That can change things drastically. Like, well, now I don't have a $3,000 mortgage
But
payment.
then you have that client's like, I got $60,000 in the bank. You're like, oh, you're not spending everything.
Yep. They're like, I'm putting $1,000, $2,000.
And then we have the conversation, savings. Do you need that much in savings? So
it just shifts. It's probably 50-50 on that conversation.
I would agree. Number two, and I think this is the hardest, I don't know what it is. I do think this is the hardest concept for people to grasp. Your paycheck just doesn't show up. Like, I think there's got to be some deep psychology about someone not paying you. Instead of you're starting to take distributions out of your account. In retirement, you become responsible for creating your own paycheck. And you can tell people are like, well, how does that work? Do I, you know what I mean? Do I take it monthly?
We had it yesterday.
Yes.
So someone asked, like, what's that look like?
Should I wait for Social Security one more year? Should I not? Should I pull it out of this investment? Like, I do think that's the hardest thing for people to grasp at first is like, where is my income coming from? How much do I actually need? And what's the best method of taking it? I
think that's a value of having a plan and a strategy. And we would call this a distribution strategy or a retirement income strategy, right? So we always use, or I use the terminology floor income. That would be your pension, Social Security, something we can bank on every month
It's coming in.
No matter what. And then the next level of income is, your retirement income. And that's where you're more in control of that, of like, okay, we need to fill the gap. You're like, I need an extra $2,000 or $3,000 to pay my bills and have some, fun money, different things there. Where's that going to come from? That's going to come from your retirement assets. You're more in control of turning on that paycheck, right? So some people, it's like, hey, we send a distribution out quarterly, or some is like, no, I want a 1st and the 15th, similar to my paycheck I was getting at when I was teaching or whatever.
They like that comfort.
Yep, knowing, and we just start that distribution strategy, but having a plan of where that's going to come from, especially leading up into retirement, once your actual W-2 income shuts off or your ordinary income shuts off from work or wherever you were employed at.
And this is different for everyone, because, some people work part-time in retirement. Some people have a bunch of cash in the bank that they want to utilize. It's very different, but I do find it interesting. And I'll ask you this, Cole, how many isn't it when someone depends on Social Security, it's so much more stressful. And then the people who don't depend on it, those are the people like, oh, I could live off it, no problem. So about 40% of retirees rely on Social Security for the majority of their income, which if you live your life and you're content, but we don't want just Social Security. We would love a pension in there. We'd love a distribution.
It was designed to be a supplement. You look up Social Security, what the original design of Social Security, it was purely to be a supplement to your retirement income, not your sole retirement income, right? And that's where now Bailey's talking about a situation we had recently where it is a joy to us when we go and like husband and wife, they have maybe, $3,000 Social Security benefits.
Because they've waited.
They've compounded. They're both, we had a couple that was just in, kind of waited for, they still haven't kicked on Social Security. They're kind of getting to the latest they can wait. And we're sitting there running analysis and we're like, well, that's $6,500 a month in Social Security income. Like, oh yeah, that probably covers our needs, our ordinary needs.
Because we have no debt.
That means, and we use the terminology reliance rate. The reliance rate on their other assets to survive on a monthly basis is very, very low.
Which allows those investments to continue to grow. That's what people don't understand. When you're letting that sit over there and cook while you're just kind of using Social Security and the pension.
Letting it cook, huh?
Let it cook. You just had to interrupt. I'm just kidding. But I'm saying you can see it's just easier, stressful. It's like the people who really dial this in, like, can I wait for Social Security? Can I work part-time? You
have more room for error when this is the case. When your floor income covers a lot of your monthly needs, you can make, not that we want you to make mistakes, but you could make a few more mistakes in your investment philosophy or your investment assets. Because again, you have more time on your side. You make, I'll just wait to take a distribution or I'm going to maybe wait to upgrade the car because the investments are down a little bit more. Like you have those decisions knowing that, hey, every single month my ordinary stuff is covered.
And I feel bad. We have the opposite too, where someone's like, I really need to turn on Social Security because I need income, but I really need to wait because I really need it to, it's just
longevity, right? Or something. There's some reason there. They're protecting a spouse or something else across the board there.
Number 3, think this is probably everyone's biggest concern when they're trying to decide when to retire. Healthcare will be one of your biggest expenses in retirement. I think healthcare is one of your biggest expenses now.
And we're not talking long-term care, right? That's a whole different, objective that we want to, or, potential red flag or problem that could come up as long-term care. This is specific, like healthcare costs, such as Medicare premiums, prescription drugs, dental and vision. Historically, it's not very well covered, with Medicare. So, but that's something I don't think a lot of people think once they get on Medicare. Just from my conversations, I will ask this, like, hey, how concerned are you about healthcare stuff? And people have had pre-existing or really bad conditions, right? They're always thinking about it. But someone that's really not had a lot in life and they're kind of getting to that retirement, and they're like, oh, I'm going to be just fine. They don't really think that could be something around the corner.
Well, about 70% of people over 65 will need some form of long-term care, which means like maybe you went into a facility for a couple of weeks. Maybe someone comes into the home. It's just the older you get, things come up. You're used to being healthy, and
we're kind of lumping those together. But a lot of times what we do in planning is we'll carve out an extra monthly budget for extra healthcare expenses, and that might be, again, and it's so specific to where you live, what you're seeing, what type of medication you're on, whether you're on dental, vision, different things there. But we always like to have something carved out of like,
something to plan for.
Because costs for healthcare are going up. They're going up more than
the
ordinary inflation amount. And hopefully there's some point that, stalemates and maybe trends down. But at this rate, I feel
that all my friends in healthcare are like, it's crazy. And I'm like, yes, it's out of control. Something needs to be revamped.
And the same thing for long-term care, right? We shift now. Long-term care generally we look at that as different than the healthcare expenses, right? We try to plan. And our planning software, what we set up as a default is we do the last 2 years of your plan. So say we're saying you're going to live to 95, right? And that's part of like, hey, do you have longevity in your family? But 90 or 95 is generally what we use for planning purposes. And we'll generally show the last 2 years of your plan, showing some type of distribution that covers, a long-term care stay, nursing home, or whatever it might be, just to see like, hey, does your plan still have money left in the end? Or, hey, that's something that can derail your plan if it happens maybe much earlier.
And it changes the plan when you can retire, right? Like if you want to retire early, this is something you want to plan for early. Because how many clients do we have like, oh, I'm literally only working to keep the insurance, or, oh, I'm going to work until I can get COBRA, until I can get to Medicare. Like this is definitely a conversation we have for people wanting to retire pre-Medicare age.
I think too, concerns that if you fall in these two categories, one, you're worried about leaving money to others, right? If you're not, you're fine, right? Yeah, spend it up. If you go into care, you might go on Medicaid, but all your assets get liquidated, down.
You cannot hide them, by the way.
Or yeah, no, that's real tough. Or there's a big gap in age between husband and wife, where you're like, hey, most likely one could go in, one could live another 15, 20 years. And the one that goes in could really draw down and hurt the assets and protection for the other one. So you want to make sure if you do have a bigger age gap, maybe 5 to 10 year age gap. That's where we see it where it can kind of be of concern on our end. We've seen that like, oh man, this is kind of a tough situation.
Which I'm going to advocate. Again, this is why investing is so important, because when you can rely on your investments for these situations. I have a client, they have an age gap. One has a diagnosis. She's like, I don't want to wait to retire because we have the funds. I'd rather spend them because I want to spend time together in retirement. So like, again, the power of being self-insured is so powerful in those conversations.
I'm glad you said that, because we have a lot of, I don't want to like beat on our industry. A lot of people will try to sell long-term care insurance or different products that sometimes it's
self-insured.
Like, hey, we can just do a really good job with our saving asset mix, and we can grow our assets into some protection for us.
Cole knows this, because there'll be some products where we know someone probably made a big commission, and it's just the world we live in. I'm not saying that's what they believe in. We believe different. I'm not saying everyone does it differently, but I'm like, think if they would have just invested that amount they're paying for that insurance over 30 years, they'd be self-insured with way more control, and they don't have to get the caveat. It's just,
and again, we can't plan for every contingency. We always tell some people are, right? If you have enough assets, you might be like, I can handle about anything that's going to get thrown my way. But most people, it's like, hey, I'm going to check 3 out of the 4 boxes. I'm probably not getting all 4 perfectly.
Good conversation. All right, number 4. I love this one. Debt doesn't just magically go away. Around 40% of retirees still have a mortgage. Does that surprise you?
No, unfortunately, from experience, I see a lot. That's generally the one debt I will see more often carried into retirement, right? Or some people love to buy a car when they retire.
I've noticed about that. They're like, I just got a car.
It's like the pat on the back thing, I think. And, and unfortunately, we try not to have people have, especially car debt. Mortgage debt, I would say, is the top one that I'm more okay with, especially if their income, your income. Yeah, if their income is supporting it, right? Versus saying, hey, I'm going to liquidate assets to pay the mortgage down.
Let me ask you this, though. How much easier is it mentally for your clients when they go into retirement?
Yeah.
And there's no debt. I mean, you can already feel the easy. I mean, we sat with
kind of a weight off
their back. Do you have
any
any debt? Nope. You can just feel the shoulders already. Whoosh.
You just have more optionality on your more flexibility in your spending.
Have more strength in them. Yeah. It doesn't, but I do think people are like, oh, I'm still going to have a payment. I'm like, well, yeah, it doesn't, you got to pay it if you want it off.
And I'm sure I've said this many times. For me, the people that can carry debt, into retirement, or even, more debt sometimes in their ordinary lifestyle, a lot of it depends on, disciplined on their personal budget. Cause we'll get this a lot, right? Should I pay the debt off with, I have money in the bank?
Yep. Or should I cash out some of my 401k?
Yep. Should I take some liquidity, pay the debt off, or should I keep my liquidity and just keep paying my payment because the interest rate's low? A lot of that comes back to your individual self-discipline. In my experience, I think there's always a mathematical way that I can tell you, yes, this is the right way, statistically to do it, or if we run it, on paper, but not always the case. And some people just can't handle that as well. If they have that liquidity sitting there, they're like, oh, I wanted to upgrade a car when I really didn't need to, but I liked it,
And I do think you can always do the math. There's always behavior psychology behind it. You can't put an interest rate on just feeling not stressed out like that. There is there's a return, there's an ROI on just feeling like I don't have to make that payment. You know what I mean?
And if you're thinking you're going to make a mistake with the liquidity, pay the debt off, right? Because you're like, okay, at least even if I waste away the rest of the money, at least I own the house outright, right?
Well, yep. All right, number 5, this is Cole J, because I always say Cole's the tax guy. Like when I have clients, I'm like, this is the guy. You want to talk taxes? This is the guy. Taxes don't retire when you do. People assume they'll be in lower tax brackets, but that's not always the case, especially if you didn't listen to Baileigh and do some Roth money back in the day.
Yep. I mean, we have a couple different things, right? A portion of your Social Security is taxable. If you took Social Security early and you're working, part-time or semi-part-time or even full-time, then it becomes more taxable, right? There's a lot of different things there to think about. And then RMDs, right? That's where you're getting into the Roth. That's
required
minimum distributions. Those are, if you're someone with very a significant amount of your net worth in your 401k and it's pre-tax. And you're individual we're talking about, it's like, hey, we have really good Social Securities. We maybe have IPERs or something in the state of Iowa.
We don't want to take that distribution.
You're probably going to be, you're in your one that's like, hey, I'm not planning on touching that yet. You're probably someone that should start to look at Roth conversions or doing things out of there, because what happens is when you start to model from, say you retire at 60 and you have $1 million in your pre-tax 401k and you're not taking any money out of it, you start to model at 13 years, and most likely that person will be 70. I would guess the RMD age by that time will be 75.
Yep.
15 years, and you start looking, you're like, and we'll model like, here's what your RMD would be. You're like, oh my gosh, and now my tax
50,000 out a year.
Yeah, 50,000 or even more, and it's like, why do I need that? I'm just paying taxes.
That bumps up your income.
I'm just paying more taxes
on top of the income you're already receiving.
Yep. So, and that's the we talk about diversification in our ordinary investments, but that's called tax diversification, and we worry about that, and that's more of a. It's tough because it's very delayed, but like some of that planning you can do, such as take in 10, 15,000 of doing Roth conversions each year over a 10, 15 year period, you'd be shocked at how much that can soften that tax bill later in life, or transition money to children or kids or organizations tax-free.
Roth's the best money to pass down. Best.
This podcast is produced by Spin Market and Digital. Located in Fort Dodge, Iowa, Spin Market's highly skilled team can help you increase your market by updating your website, improving SEO, designing advertisements, and producing podcasts that will grab the attention of your market. Contact Spin Market today for all your digital marketing needs at digitalagent@spinmarket.com or call us at 515-302-8026. And to learn more, visit our website at www.spinmarket.com. That's digitalagent@spinmarket.com or 515-302-8026. Or visit our website at www.spinmarket.com.
All right, we still haven't figured out our new jingle. We'll get there, but this is Cole's Corner.
Ooh, nice. That was good.
I kind of liked it.
Snapback.
Not a snapback hat.
Although, we had a quite lengthy conversation on snapbacks, but after falling 9.9% from its January 27th peak high to its closing of March 30th, it took just 11 trading days for the S&P 500 to recover the losses. So it was down 9.9%, the S&P, from the end of January basically through March.
A little volatile.
11 trading days to recover. That's the quickest of all time to reach, go back at least 5% and retrace to 52-week highs for the S&P, quickest of all time. I
mean, I'm sure if Peter wanted to clip how many times we've said,
oh my gosh,
don't time the market, be in the market. Don't time the market, stay in the market.
Prime example, because we had, I'm sure you would echo this, phone call, March 31st statements came out, right? So the last, market day was the 30th. Statements for our firm came out on the 31st. I got mailed out. Now, if you're on electronically, you see it every day, but we have quite a few people that live in the Stone Age and still, they only do their paper. Yeah, which is completely fine.
It's kind of nice because they don't look at it every day.
And they're calling and they're like, what's going on? What's going on? 11 days later, if you just didn't think about 11 days later, you retraced and probably had more in your account than what you'd lost over that period of time. Now, again, dude, we expect the ups and downs. How quick we just have, some geopolitical news. I think the market does move a little faster these days.
We have Twitter now.
On the
X,
the up and down side, but it's just that prime example for staying invested, even when, emotionally you maybe get those drawstrings of like, hey, do I need to make a change? Do I make a change? And that's where we're advocates.
I mean, even as an advisor, I'll look at it kind of like, oh, it's down. But I'm like,
please call it. Like if you're working with us or you're not working with us, and call your advisor. That's when you should be talking to them. Like, hey, we've planned for this. I think that's when we earn, the money that we do make, and why we provide value is to revert back. Like, hey, we have planned for this, because it's recency bias, right? For the good and for the bad, right? What's happened most recent is how we're judged, how people are talking to us, and we want. If that made you uncomfortable, again, great opportunity for you to rebalance or maybe take some risk off the table. If when we were down 9.9%, now that was, Just because the equity market was down, that does not mean your portfolio was down.
Your
there,
portfolio might be, but it might not be.
We had portfolios that were up.
Yeah.
It's like just depending. They're more fixed income, more interest based. Yeah. And there was stocks that did well.
My accounts were down.
Defensive stocks did, war creates, positivity.
Mine was up. I do have one of those.
Energy stocks were, well, right. So there are things that you would have owned at that time that probably, were up in value. But we want people to, have the conversation. And now's the time, hey, we reverted back a lot of that value. Now to make an adjustment to your portfolio.
I will say this, it's not perfect because you can't control emotions. I would also toot our horn. We're very in tune with our clients, like who can handle the waves and who can't. Like, I think we do a good job up front. So we kind of relieve some of that. Like, there's a lot of clients who can't handle it and we have them in something that may be,
I always love, we speak percentages, but I think if you really want to, if you're reallocating a portfolio, a great analysis to go through for yourself is, okay, if I have $1 million and I have a 10% pullback, which is very common to happen once a year, once every other year, you should plan on a 10% pullback. About once every 4 years, you should plan on a 20+% pullback, right? It happens statistically. You look back at the history of the market. 10% doesn't sound like a lot, but you say $1 million portfolio, that's $100,000. Yeah. How does that make you feel? Right? And you're like, oh my God, I would lose sleep for the next 3 months.
But most people who have that much understand it, right?
Yep. You understand there's going to be those peaks and valleys.
You understand that's why you have accumulated.
But again, when your account, you're looking and you're happy and you're like, oh, my account's at all-time highs. Those are the times that you want to look at potentially rebalancing, right? Because you're rebalancing from strength. Meaning maybe you're taking some risk out the table, not when the market you're down that 10% and you're panicking. Yeah. Right? You want to do it. Now we
always move from a place of strength, not panic.
Easier said than done, but that's where I think we're constantly having that conversation and maybe repetitively, with clients like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm fine. Yeah. But then they're the ones that we feel when things are down, they sometimes will make, irrational decisions.
Yes. Cole's Corner's getting just better every time, Cole. Snaps. All right, let's get back into it. Number 6, things no one talks about in retirement. Spending. I love this one. Spending is emotionally
This is hard. Right up your alley.
It's hard. Cole knows this. It's hard for me to spend money. Like, me and Luke are going on a trip next week. I never leave. I like to be home. I like to travel, but I spend a little money. I'm like, gosh, why do I always feel? And I'm only, I'm not even in retirement. I feel the guilt because I'm just used to saving. But we have clients who have saved their whole life, and it is very hard for them to turn on the spending.
Like, hey, don't you want to take a vacation or do something? Like
they're like planning for the worst case scenario all the time in their head. They're like, but what if this happens? I'm like, but what if it goes well and you've worked really hard and now you can enjoy it? It is.
Again, it's always talking through the big picture.
And it's talking about what's important to you, right? Like if you're spending in alignment, like I'm just because it's fresh mind. Like if you want to spend some money because you enjoy a nice restaurant, do that. You know what I mean? We want you to enjoy retirement. We want to do the work ahead of time. If you want to take the trip, if you want to visit the kids, you know what I mean? It's just some people like tight grip it and cannot spend it. Like,
I also think this maybe falls a little bit in there, but like not so much spending, but the emotional side of some people they do gravitate to something that maybe doesn't cost them anything. They're more of like their time. Yeah. Right. They dive into this. And sometimes that is, we don't always know that, but they're like, oh no, I'm really fulfilled. I don't need to spend money because my time is volunteering or doing this.
There's more contentment.
We have a lot of that where I'm like, oh, that's great to know. And then we can generally, double click or get a lot deeper into that of like, well, maybe that leads to some of your money going to an organization or something charity. That's the way you're maybe spending some of your dollars. We don't just mean spending of like, hey, going on another vacation.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you said that because I do feel like the people who have a hard time spending they just enjoy the walks. They enjoy being at home. They enjoy, you know what I mean? It's like, they're like, yep, that's there if I need it, if I want to, but they are so content in the life they have created. There is a happiness to it. I'm so glad you said that.
I like this on our outline here is retirement spending is not linear. It's dynamic.
100%.
That's so true. So true. It's like you're going to go through periods where like we plan for a budgeted number and like we want to illustrate more than what you're probably going to spend just to put pressure in your plan. But it is going to be like you might go 3 years where you're well below your budget, and then all of a sudden you blow through it because you needed a new roof. Then you got in a car accident, and this, and all of a sudden you doubled your budget in 1 year. That does happen, and we see that. That's those what if scenarios of planning for things of like, okay, do we have some cushion for when we budgeted $70,000, also we need 120? Yep. What does that do to your plan? What does that do to the long term outlook of your retirement income?
Yep. So number 7, estate planning is your estate plan is usually outdated, which I'm going to say 80% of people are like, yeah, I have a will, I haven't touched it in 10 years. Or I mean,
majority of the people that come in,
even people with large amount of money, like it is insane to me how many people have not updated their will since this is the trigger.
Which seems odd because my attorney friends seem to be doing well. So I'm like, I don't.
Yeah, they are. They're not slowing down.
I don't. But it is. A lot of people are so reactive.
Yes.
In some of these situations, or something happens.
But our lawyer friends, I won't say who, he has even said the amount of times I get a call on Monday, hey, I'm leaving for a cruise Friday. I need something drawn up real fast. That is not a plan. That is a Band-Aid. That is not a will. That is a Band-Aid. You probably didn't look at it deeply. You didn't think it through deeply. It changes. And our last episode, we had an amazing guest, Patrick Clark Capital. He talks about this. This is all he does. He's a big time lawyer. He works with big estate planning, but even for any size, you need to update it, review it every 2 to 4 years.
I will say that from my perspective, that was something that was eye-opening because I've made one and I was just like, well, it's good forever.
Yep.
No, it's apparently you need to at least go back and look at the thing.
Life changes, the things.
Laws change.
Yeah.
That happens a lot. A lot of things is like, or you move to a different state and now you're subject to different estate laws in Florida versus Iowa versus Texas, right? So
there's a lot of famous people with big estates that die with no plan. Like, it's not just.
Well, that's why this is such a hot topic because it does happen where like we have it more with, I would say, farm estate planning where someone was a very large farmer, owned a ton of ground.
They don't want to have the conversation with the kids.
I challenge people to have it's not that. It's difficult to have the conversation, but you just need to find someone to facilitate the conversation.
Just
and
like
then
we facilitate.
You need to talk through it. The upfront, is kind of hard, takes some time. But then after that, it's just more review and adjust.
Yes.
So it's not like you need to have that big.
Your foundation's there. Yep. You might be changing the blinds.
Yep. And think your family dynamic changes. Now all of a sudden you have kids and grandkids.
Maybe you have a kid that grows up and you don't. You know what I mean? It's so situational. This in like some sort of term insurance for young people, I'm always like, even my sister, I'm like, get your dang will in place. I'm gonna have to spend my money if something happens to you fighting for your kids. Like, but in all seriousness, like I think it's 60 to 70% of Americans do not have a will updated. Like, I'm begging you, take 2 hours out of your day and sit down with your spouse or even by yourself if you don't have someone and think about what you want and then go meet with a lawyer and get it done.
We do, quite a bit of 401k planning. And we actually have a vendor that we work with that part of their, if you're a participant in one of their plans, they have a free service that's an additional, basically you just have to go through and do the work.
Yeah. You can did it last week.
You can get a will,
one of the participants.
Healthcare power of attorney and durable power of attorney created, executed. All you have to do is basically take it, you fill out a bunch, they ask you the questions, this, and this. You get an executed document, then you just have to take and basically get it recorded. And it's certified for free. Now it's a basic one, but
better than nothing.
That tells you if that record keeper knows the importance of that, of like how often, it's happening where people don't have will, they're actually paying. This is a third party service. So they're paying that somewhere to get that service added to those plans.
If you take one thing from this podcast, please have a will, at least a will in place. And also take another step further because we always make sure the beneficiaries on our accounts match what the will says. Because how many times have you heard an ex-spouse was left on a 401k they forgot about or they didn't update it, and then the will says it goes to the kid, but the beneficiary says the ex-spouse gets it.
I have two prospect scenarios I've had in the last week, 2 different meetings where I've asked about beneficiary designations. They were not clients of ours yet, but I gathered statements in 401k statements. They each had multiple retirement accounts. In both scenarios, they had multiple accounts that did not. They thought they had a spouse listed or a spouse and kids.
It's like the first thing we look at when we get a new statement.
2 for 2, the last 2 prospects I've met, and neither one of them, both retirement age, both significant amount of assets that would have completely changed the tax dynamic. And ultimately, a lot of times it still ends up in the right person's hands.
But it's going to cost you more money and time. Probate is not free.
And the taxation changes on retirement accounts. If it goes from a spouse to if you don't have a spouse listed, even if you're married, there's a lot of scenarios. And like we harp on that. Make sure your beneficiaries are up to date.
Yep. Number 8, another thing no one talks about in retirement, your house can either help or hurt you. And I do think this is a decision point you need to. A lot of people are in the home they're going to stay in, but there is some people that want to downsize, relocate. Can they afford to relocate? But it is the largest expense category in retirement is your home. So we also don't want you getting to retirement and thinking you're going to upgrade to something you can't afford, It's just something we need to talk about.
I think there's power in downsizing always. Like I'm an advocate for people downsizing if they want to, right? And especially as they get to, later.
Give me a little townhome when I'm retired. I don't want a shovel.
Single floor, single. No.
I don't want to mow.
Easy, no stairs. No mowing, no scooping snow. I'm going to be somewhere south, at that point. So I'm not even going to worry about the snow. I'll let it just accumulate.
Yeah, there you go. But I do think it's something that impacts cash flow. Again, we had talked about this a few steps back. If you have debt on your mortgage, it's just something, don't wait until retirement and think, let's plan for it. Do you want to move south? Do you want to downsize? Are you going to relocate? Are you in your forever home now?
You always have to upgrade. You always have to upgrade. The water heater goes out, right? The furnace goes out. You need a new AC. You need a roof.
Wants a new kitchen. Yep. Husband wants a new kitchen.
Yeah, there's always something. And generally, the longer you live in a place,
your kids will maybe not be in the hometown, and you want to move somewhere that they're at so you can be around the grandkids.
I had a couple recently. They had a pretty nice house, and they don't really know what they're going to do. They're kind of early retirees, but they just sold their house. They were didn't want to do the snow removal, all that stuff, and they're living in they're renting like a retirement apartment type. See? It's kind of set up for that. And it's like,
when you do friends, like a college
they did their
apartment.
math. They get a meal a day, and not everyone's going to do this. Don't get me wrong, but they simplified it down a lot. They're like, hey, we're actually saving. We're just as happy. We're saving half what we owned our house outright. And even with utilities and all the other expenses, we're renting a place, but we're actually half our budget of what we were when we were owning.
Yeah.
So they don't have taxes. They don't have insurance.
Huge cash flow. And again, also,
now, they're really simple people. A lot of people can't do that. So I will say that. I would struggle with that.
We know. But also, he's looking at me.
Jeez, Peter, what was that?
We know you're not going to downsize.
What am I, like high maintenance here or what?
You're a little bougie. Behind the mic. Behind the scenes, no one knows, but we know at the office. No, I'm just kidding. Also, let me add this.
I'm tidy. I would say that.
Okay.
You got oat milk in your coffee this morning.
That was by accident, though. I'm a whole milk guy.
Well, let me ask you this, too. Our house is getting any cheaper?
No, they're not.
So if you want,
and repairs aren't getting any cheaper.
I can't believe how much that's gone up. So it's just this isn't fear-based. I am not a fear-based person. I think a lot of people sell on fear. I won't do that. I'm an awareness. Let's have some awareness to what you want and how to make it happen. So number 9, retirement needs structure. I love this one. This is where I feel like it gets real. Like, you need movement, you need social connection, you need hobbies, rest. We talked about this. Most people struggle actually emotionally in the first year of retirement. They lose that sense of purpose. Like, we talked to someone, again, all I know is work. That's my identity. I don't know what else. I will struggle with that. Work is a big part of my identity.
I think this is maybe stereotyping a little bit, but I find the professional services have a struggle. Yeah. Like our industry, attorneys, our CPAs. Like you're just very, like, you have to be very structured. You're very like on your business all the time.
Business owners.
Yeah. And business owners just in general. But I find now, when we get a gauge and see the people that seem to be, you never know if someone's happy or not, but a lot of times we get a lot of the intimate details of people's life.
I love our job because we get to sit with people, and I'm like, wow, you get to see it in real time on both ends, the accumulation and the I love being able to hear people's stories.
I think the people that are constantly around, forcing themselves to be a little social, generally seem to be the happiest, right? Because they have some social connection.
Fine, I'll go on my soapbox. We are designed for connection. We are human connection. We do not want you to be lonely in retirement, and you can see the difference. That's what you're saying. People who sit at home and the people who have, and I'm not saying go rage. I'm saying go for a walk, go do pickleball, go do charity work.
Someone will probably have to force me out of the house when I'm probably at that age.
I bet you'll be.
Other than golf, I golf.
You and Chelsea will be hiking. Yeah. But I'm saying money gives you the ability to retire, but structure gives you the ability to enjoy it. Like, don't just wake up at 11 o'clock and think you're going to enjoy retirement. I'm not saying never sleep in. I'm not saying that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying have some social connection hobbies. It's proven people with hobbies.
And start doing it before you retire.
Thank you.
That's a big piece. Again, reverting back to what we talked about, we presented a couple years ago at our client
the
event.
First year or two is really,
and it's like that year leading up in retirement really kind of start like going through like, what am I going to fill some of my time with? What do I enjoy doing? And start doing it early, like, and getting an idea of something that's going to fill some of those voids. And maybe it's volunteering on more boards or whatever it might be. So early retirees make great board members.
Yeah. Number 10, the last one, and we were kind of just talking about, the identity shift is real. Going from working, purpose and routine, and when that's gone, we just want you to feel like you have something else. We don't want you to feel lost, because the happiest retirees are not always the richest. They're the ones that replace the purpose. They have purpose. We want you to have purpose in this world.
And it goes right in with the need structure, right? So trying to have some type of scheduled routine, somewhat. Doesn't need to be perfect. You have a little more flexibility now, right? But it's filling some of that time,
mentoring, volunteering, being with your family. Some of the happiest retirees, it's like the old grandpa that just shows up and he's always there for the grandkids with the sucker.
But there's a lot of research that shows that their happiness declines right after retirement, right? Because they lose the sense of purpose. So or you're kind of like lost. Like, what am I doing now? You know, and then you're like, well, I'm 65 and I, could live another 30 years. What am I going to do? How am I going to fill that time?
We were talking about this off mic, and I'll end at this. Cole, do you think you'll ever, in quotations, retire? And when I say this is the difference. People who work optional, we talk about this a lot. Like, do I have to go to work to make retirement work, or can I just explore different avenues of life now that I have this accumulation? What else? Can I go volunteer? Can I go speak to a women's group? Can I go be an entrepreneur speaker? This is, Like, we think about Eddie Thompson we've had on the podcast. He loves still helping people.
I think I always have something that occupies my time. But again, but
it's a choice.
The family dynamic will probably dictate some of that, of like where I'm at with kids and grandkids.
What if Cole J is stay-at-home grandpa, just watching the grandkids at home?
We'll see. Maybe someday I'm really slowed down. I'm slowed down and I'm just the school bus driver, for the grandkids. So
got a big van,
maybe. I don't know. Who knows?
But that's what I'm saying is have some identity, have some purpose, because we want you to enjoy retirement. We all work so hard and we chase that goal, and then we hit the goal. Like, let's have a reason why we're chasing the goal, right?
So we've talked about a lot, a lot of different things. And I think we've touched on a lot of those topics over.
I don't think you can talk about some of this enough.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, we have the conversation so often with people about a lot of those different.
Like the estate planning, the will.
But, if you take anything from this episode, it's, it's not about just building wealth. Right. it's about designing a life that, is going to continue to fulfill you.
Yes.
And be optimistic for a long retirement. Right. Yeah. Sometimes we get people that are like, I'm not going to live that long.
All the time.
Retired and I was like, well, if you're going to work with me, we're going to be optimistic. That's what I always say. I was like, we're planning for you to live to 90. We're just manifest to make this happen.
101.
We're going to live a good life.
All right, before I go in for my quote of the day, I want to say this. We've had a lot of people giving feedback on the podcast. It's
been much appreciated.
Yeah, like, hey, I'm thinking about these things. I'm listening to it. Please do, do Cole J a favor. He needs more people to hear Cole's Corner, but it makes a huge difference. Like, subscribe, check out the old episodes, share it. Just even hit that follow button. It really helps us because we want to keep putting out this great content for you. And me and Cole are professional yappers, so this is what we're born to do.
That's a true statement.
Yep. The two most important days in your life are the day you are born and the day you find out why. Mark Twain.
You've been listening to How to Money with Cole and Baileigh, the podcast of Full Swing Financial Planning. To learn more, visit their website at www.fullswingfinancial.com and follow them on Facebook and LinkedIn. Security and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor. Member FINRA, SIPC.